And welcome to this brief tutorial on how to use MS Word to format the title page of a dissertation at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. My name's Oren, and I am, as of the making of this video, a graduate student at the University of North Carolina. I was in the process of formatting my own dissertation when I noticed that while the graduate school has very detailed instructions for how your dissertation is supposed to appear, they don't tell you on their website how to use the functions of MS Word to obtain that appearance. So, for instance, if we go to the UNC Graduate School Dissertation Guideline page, what we'll see is that they really do have a lot of detailed instructions. So for instance, this section on the title page not only tells you in verbal descriptions how to format your title page, it also shows you visually how far apart the different components of the title page are supposed to be. And UNC has been really good about providing these kinds of sample pages and pretty clear descriptions for all of the pages. So here's how your copyright page is supposed to appear. Similarly, here's how your abstract is supposed to appear. And all the way down the line. There's also some specific instructions on the type of fonts you can use. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But while the graduate school does a good job of giving you these instructions on how your dissertation is supposed to appear, they don't give you much instruction in the way of how you can actually obtain that appearance. Now, so that's where this tutorial has come in, particularly for the title page. If we look at that title page, we'll notice that a lot of it seems pretty simple to format. We all probably know how to center text on a page, like the title of the dissertation is centered right there. And that's not too complicated. But for me, one of the big challenges was the vertical positioning of text, particularly getting text that was exactly 1 inch from the line above it. Sorry, text that was 1 inch from the line above it, and so on and so forth, all the way down through the various components of this document. So that's one of the main things we'll tackle in this video, using a method that I don't know, developed for myself a little bit, but also from some research on the internet. It won't solve all your formatting problems, particularly for some of the other pages of the dissertation, but this title page of the dissertation is a formatting hurdle that every graduate student at UNC is going to have to tackle. And unless you're an experienced professional or technical writer, you may not have experience with some of the more advanced functions of Microsoft Word that are required for achieving this precise 1 inch spacing between elements. So that's, again, one of the main things we're going to tackle. So let's start by opening up a document in MS Word. You can open up a blank document. I've already prepared a document that we're going to use, but if you want to format your own dissertation title page while I'm formatting this example, that's fine, and I'm going to give you plenty of time to go ahead and do that. What I've done here is I've written out all the text I need for the title page of my personal dissertation. So right here, this is my title. That's the title of my dissertation. And you can see that just like the graduate school style guide suggests, I've written it in all caps. I've also chosen to write it in Times New Roman font. And you actually are not required to use Times New Roman. There is some leeway with fonts that you can use. However, there are some fonts that the graduate school advises you against using, and you can read up on that right there. And the reason for that, it has something to do with the way certain fonts are more or less durable in electronic storage. Some of them don't store as well as others. Times New Roman is a really basic font that'll store perfectly fine. So too is Arial and a number of other pretty basic fonts. But you have some choices to the font you use. That said, once you choose to use a font, you need to use that font consistently throughout your dissertation. So all of my dissertation has been written in Times New Roman in 12-point font, and that's what I'm using here. As I said, I've caps locked the title of my dissertation, and then I've written my name below it. And let me just make a brief comment about your name. The graduate school mentions this, but I'll mention it here since we're going over the title page in general. Your name does not need to appear exactly as it will on your diploma. So if you like putting in your middle initial, or you don't like putting in your middle initial, you have some leeway with regard to that. That said, they do advise you that you use the version of your name that you are most likely to use in the future when you publish work, or that you have already used in the past in your previously published work. And because that will allow readers to associate your your work published elsewhere with this dissertation. It will kind of give you a consistency of sourcing across your career for your published work. So I generally publish just using my first and last name without my middle initial, and that's how I've written my name here. Oh, and one other feature I should point out. You may have noticed these little blue paragraph markers. They're there because I've turned on this button right here at the top, which is Show All Non-Printing Characters. If I hit that again, you'll see those paragraph markers disappear. If I hit it again, they reappear. When you're formatting things in MS Word and doing some kind of more advanced manipulation of textual positions, it helps to have these non-printing characters shown, so that if you have an extra space or there's an indentation that doesn't quite make sense to you, MS Word will show you the reason for that indentation. So for instance, we know that this line is ending right here because I hit enter and returned the paragraph to the next line. All right, so we've gone over the title phrase, we've gone over the author phrase, and then there's this phrase right here, which I don't really know if there's a good term for it. You might call it the purpose of the work. It explains what the document is, and it's a dissertation submitted to the faculty at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. The phrasing, the exact phrasing that the grad school wants is on their style guide. It's right here. And you may notice that in some instances, they want you to write in the named school. I don't need to do that because I'm not in a named school, but I imagine that for people who are, say, in the Department of Epidemiology in the Gilling School of Public Health, you would both want to write that you are in the Department of Epidemiology and that department is located in the Gilling School of Public Health. Since I'm just in the Department of English and Comparative Literature, and that department is a standalone department just within the university, I don't need to insert the name of a separate school. The place and date of publication come next. That's pretty self-explanatory. And this last bit of text requires a little bit of explanation, although probably not too much. It's pretty obviously the members of your dissertation committee, the people who are approving it. But there are a couple details about it that we need to note. First, it's customary to list your advisor first because of the prominence that they have in helping you produce your work. After that, you list people by alphabetical order. So you can see I've listed Daniel Anderson second, Daniel Anderson second, Christian Lundberg third, and so on and so forth down the line. I've also taken the liberty of listing these people using the names that they tend to use when they publish. So for instance, Christian O. Lundberg used his first, middle initial, and last name when he published his most recent book, which is why I chose to insert his middle initial there, for the exact same reasons that I chose to just use my first and last name above. It achieves that kind of consistency of reference across different scholarly works. Okay, so we've got all our text written and formatted correctly. We haven't done any of the spacing yet. We've just put it on lines one below the next. And what we'll do in the next few minutes is we're going to achieve these 1-inch separations between textual elements that we talked about earlier. And how we do that is pretty simple. First, what we're going to do is we're going to put our cursor between two lines of text that we need to have a 1-inch separation. So I'll do that right now. Next, what we're going to do is go to Insert and scroll down to Table. And now Word is going to give us a choice for how many columns and rows we're going to want in our table. I'll show you how to do this in a second, but to foreground what we're doing here, basically what we're going to do is we're going to insert a 1-inch tall table between those two elements, and that will ensure that those two pieces of text are 1 inch apart. So it doesn't really matter how many columns and rows we have, but just to make life simple for ourselves, we're just going to make the table 1 column and 1 row, which means that it's going to basically end up being this big, thin rectangle right here. You can see that we already have an extra line below this table, and we'll just get rid of that. Okay, So now what we have is this really long table. The nice thing about this table is we can actually manipulate its height in very precise increments. We can do that by going up here to Layout, and you'll see that once we do that, we're given the option of manipulating the table's height. By the way, if you don't see this table and layout, these tables and layout tabs, it may be because your cursor is not in the table. So if I put my cursor on the word dissertation, that doesn't give me any options for table layout because the word dissertation isn't a table. If I click inside the table, all of a sudden table design and layout pop up. So if you don't see it, that's why. So once we've clicked inside the table, I'm going to click again on layout, and then I'll just go over to this height box, and I'll just write in 1, and that little quotation mark sign is the symbol for inches. If I hit enter, you can see that I now have a 1-inch tall table, which achieves exactly the separation that I want. Although you might say that I've got a little bit extra because it does look, and I'll zoom in here so we can see it a little bit better, it does look as though this line of text isn't exactly touching the top of this box. That's okay. I've talked with people in the graduate school, and this is a margin of error that they're not really interested in enforcing. But there's also an explanation for why that inch is there. We got to remember that all these letters here, like in the word Darwin, are caps lock, which means none of them are going beneath the baseline of the text. So if, for instance, if I was to insert a lowercase g, all of a sudden we see why that space is necessary. Some letters go beneath the baseline. In fact, there's even one capital letter, Q, that goes beneath the baseline. So we need that baseline there. So we'll leave that there. And let's zoom out a little bit again so we can see what we've got here. You can see again we've got this nice 1-inch separation, which is exactly what the graduate school wants us to have. All right. Now that I've got this perfect 1-inch tall box, I can just copy and paste it and insert it every place I need a 1-inch separation. So to do that, I'll just put my cursor over here on the right. You can see it's blinking right there. And I'll just move my, I'll start that again. I'll put my cursor right here on the right, push down, and slide over. That'll highlight this whole box. And then I can just copy and paste it like I would copy and paste any other element of a document. Okay, so I've copied it, and I'm going to insert it right here because I need a 1-inch separation between my name and between the purpose statement of the document. And so now I'll just hit insert. Sorry, now I'll just hit paste. And there you go. You can see we've also created this extra line here, but again, we can just delete that. And we're starting to get that nice 1-inch separation that the graduate school wants us to have. Things are starting to look good. All right, now I need another 1-inch separation between the bottom of the purpose statement and the place and date of publication. So again, I'll just put my cursor in between those two. I'll go to paste, and there we go. And I'll get rid of this extra line there. And I need one more 1-inch separation between the date of publication and the list of the committee members. And again, I'll get rid of this extra line. All right, things are starting to look more like they're supposed to. Though you'll notice that one of the things I haven't yet achieved is this 2-inch margin between the top of the page and the first line of text, the title statement. You can see that I need to have that 2 inches right there. And that's easy enough to do. Since my margin is already set at 1 inch, all I need to do is add an extra inch from the bottom of that top margin. And I can do that with the box that I've created. So I'll just give myself an extra line there. And again, I'll paste. I'll paste that box in. And again, I'll just get rid of that extra space. And now we really are achieving the kind of vertical position of text that the graduate school calls for. Things are starting to look really good. Right. Now, I say things are starting to look really good, but obviously I'm not allowed to submit a dissertation with a whole bunch of random rectangular boxes on it. And that's not a problem. One of the nice functions of Microsoft Word's table tool is that you can make the borders of your table disappear. The table will still exist, but we won't be able to see the borders. And the way to do that is, again, by clicking inside the table. Again, if you're on the text, you won't be able to do it, but if you click inside the table, Then again, these table designs and layout tabs pull up. And within table design, over here on the right, you'll see that there's an option for borders. I'll click on this down arrow, and this fifth option down the toolbar shows me that I can select that table to have no borders. And there we go. And I'll do that for every single one of my tables. Now, again, I've got all these blue marks here, but really those aren't a problem. Those are just the non-printing characters that we talked about before. So in the end, when I'm ready to print this document or to create it as a PDF, I'll just turn that off. You'll see that I do have these two little marks here. Those won't print either. Those are just control tabs for adjusting the position of this table. So just to show you, I'll turn those borders back on. And for instance, if I wanted to move this table around on the page, I could click on this directional box, and I can move it all over the place. Of course, I don't want to do that. And then this box over here, this isn't going to print either. This is just for expanding or contracting the box. So let me go ahead. So again, don't worry if you see these boxes, don't worry, they're not going to print. They're just there for you to control. So let me just go ahead and turn that box, that table's borders off. Great. All right, now we really are getting close to looking like a dissertation. The last thing that I need to do is I need to move the phrase approved by and the names of the members of my committee over to the right side of the document. Also, these names need to be double spaced, as you see there. So let's first double space them. That's simple enough to do. There we go. All right. Now, the next thing we got to do is we have to right justify the longest name of the members of my committee. Somebody in the graduate school obviously has a sense of humor. It's hard to read, but this fake name that they've written in says Jane Incredibly Long Name Doe. So on my dissertation, the role of Jane Incredibly Long Name Doe will be played by Christian O. Lumberg. We're going to move his name entirely to the right by clicking the right align button, and that's going to push him up against this right margin. Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll just move all the other names over by hitting the tab key, and then adjusting them in kind of finer increments by using either the delete key, that's too much, by using either the spacebar key or the delete key. Obviously we can't use the, oh boy, there we go. We use the spacebar key. Now, it may be hard to eyeball exactly when you have the D in Daniel lined up with the C in Christian, or whatever the equivalent of the names of the members of your committee members are. That's okay. First, we can zoom in. That'll make it a little bit easier to see. And then what we can do is we can click on this horizontal toolbar. And that will create this nice little guideline, which we can line up with the C in Christian Lumberg. And we'll see that actually, right now, I've got everything nicely lined up. The very tips of the serifs in the capital D of Daniel are lined up with my line. So those names are lined up. And I'll just do the same thing with all the other names of members of my committee. And again, if I'm not exactly sure if the J in Jordan is lined up, I'll just create a little guideline, and everything looks good. And I'll do that again to check the A. That looks good. 2 more names to go. Looks good. Looks good. All right. So let's zoom out and see what we've got. What we have is a properly formatted dissertation page. And at this point, after you've done all this work, you definitely want to save it. And that's pretty much it. So I hope this has been helpful I'm really interested to see if you have any questions or suggestions. I should note before we finish that the way I've just done this page is not the only way to do it. There are other ways, um, particularly using an adjustable font size that's equivalent to 1 inch. There's also ways of using Word to make paragraph separations 1 inch. So there are different ways of achieving the same arrangement. The reason I like this way is it just seemed to me to be the simplest and avoided some other pitfalls of other methods, which we won't get into. And lastly, before I finish, I should say that this video isn't the only resource that the graduate school has to help you format your dissertation properly. Every year, usually once a semester actually, the graduate school holds a workshop in which they have an expert in MS Word come in and teach you how to use some of the formatting options of MS Word to properly format the different components of your dissertation. They also have one of the staff members at the graduate school, one of the staff members who actually reads dissertations and judges whether or not they fulfill the style guidelines, come into that same workshop and talk about the kinds of typical mistakes that they see. So that can be really helpful. I just came back from that workshop a few days ago, and it was useful. Again, I hope you found this useful to you. If you have ideas or suggestions, I'd encourage you to post them in the comments section below. And also, if you think you've come up with other good techniques for formatting other components of the dissertation, I'd really encourage you to make your own videos. And if you do, it'd be really great if you could insert a link to those in the comments below so that people can start to move from one video to the next and have a kind of broader compendium for formatting techniques they can use to develop their dissertations according to the graduate school's style guidelines. I would particularly suggest that the table of contents can be a little bit of a hurdle. It would be great if we could get a video on that. The list of abbreviations. Some of these other documents require some formatting that can get a little bit complicated. And we become experts in a very specific field as graduate students, but few of us become experts in using the more intricate formatting options of Microsoft Word. So I'm sure it'll be really helpful to other graduate students to see how you achieve the different style elements that the graduate school requires. So thanks again for watching, and good luck with your dissertation.